Okay. Hello, Martians. Part 2 of Bioshock. Collectivism versus Objectivism. And this time, we're going on the side of collectivism. Now, there's only one small problem with collectivism in Rapture. Sophia Lamb, she puts out there this wonderful doctrine and then completely forgets to implement any of the things that any of the collectivists in history have ever implemented. Because look, this is what happens when you put psychologists in charge of collectivism. They skip straight past all of those things. Now, look, there are some very key things that come with collectivism. There's usually an army. There's almost certainly a big government, because collectivists love big government because they like people to be busy. And nothing says busy and achieving nothing quite like government. And then on top of that, you normally have worker bees. You know, there's the working poor because, you know, we did 1984. What did they do in 1984? They had a lot of government and they had everybody working their asses off. Because you know what happens if people aren't working their asses off? They get bored. They start destroying things. They start doing drugs, having sex. It doesn't end well. If people are focusing on anything other than being busy, it never ends well. See, you know, there's one good thing that comes with collectivism, right? For the working poor. There is one big thing that comes with collectivism. In a collectivist society, the working poor get all the exercise they need every day. And there's no such thing usually as an overweight poor in a collectivist society. Collectivist societies have definitely solved the problem of overeating, of diabetes, of all of those sorts of things. Keep them lean, keep them mean. That's what I always say, people. Keep them lean, keep them mean. And this whole, you know, worker bees, lots of bureaucracy, bit of military, that's what I expect to see in Rapture. Do we get any of that? No. Yeah. She's had 8 bloody years. Well, actually not. Well, yeah, no, it's 8 years, isn't it? Yeah. She's had 8 years, for crying out loud. She can't even put together a small bloody military unit of 50 people, even 20 people, you know. What has she managed to put together, though, instead? What is her vision of collectiveness?
A cult.
Exactly. A cult. We have the Sophia Lamb Rapture Society of Scientology, because she believes that through taking drugs and expanding your mind, we can create the perfect being. And not only that can we create the perfect being, but of course, in order to get to the point where we created the perfect being, we've got to reject those drugs and all of those things that are going to create the perfect being. But it's okay to use them to create the perfect being, because that's what cultists do. Cultists basically say, do as I say, not do as I do. If I say, go kill yourself, that's perfectly okay. If I use some mind-bending drugs to do it, that's okay. But don't you dare use those drugs, because drugs are bad, kiddies. It's do as I say, not do as I do. Which just says to me that as collectivists go, Sophia Lamb is really disappointing. I've got to say. You know, we've had some really impressive collectivists in history. We've had Lenin. We've had Stalin. We've had Kim Jong-il. Well, actually, I don't think he's all that impressive. But anyway, we've had impressive collectivists in our lives. We all know what an impressive collectivist looks like. Let's face it, even at 60, Vladimir Putin, he looks boss. He looks buff. Have you guys even looked at Vladimir Putin when he takes his shirt off? The man is just total sex appeal. Because that's what collectivism does for you. It creates all this sex appeal. Do we see any of this, you know, sexy buff men walking around in Rapture? Doing the goose step? Shining their boots? I didn't see any. Did you see any? No. See? This is we know what sexy collectivists look like, and they don't look like what Sophia Lamb delivers us. So I have to say, I was actually expecting a really heavyweight battle between objectivism and collectivism between Bioshock 1 and Bioshock 2. And what we got was some definite heavyweight objectivism. Don't get me wrong, I think Andrew Ryan, he took it to the extreme. Anybody who basically orders their own son to kill them with a golf club, that's a man who believes in something. Never argue with a man who is willing to order his own son to viciously murder him with a golf club. That's passion. What do we see from Sophia Lamb? She whiny bitches out of it. Let's face it. If you're really nice to her daughter saves her. Now, what kind of freaking dedication is that? A captain always goes down with his ship? Does Sophia Lamb go down with the ship? No. She's a typical cultist. When everybody else is taking the cyanide pill, making that trip up to that spaceship that just happens to be flashing by, the cultist is basically nicking out the back door. That's Sophia Lamb. So in this intellectual heavyweight battle between objectivism and collectivism, it turned out to be just a non-event. It was a TKO. She was knocked out in the first round. That's not to say that she doesn't have her good points. I mean, there is nothing quite like putting a psychiatrist in charge of drugged out maniacs to create mayhem. And let's face it, she creates mayhem like nothing. Andrew Ryan is a girl when it comes to creating mayhem. She absolutely has it nailed down. In fact, I will say that there is a certain amount of dedication that comes from converting people into giant squiddy monsters. I'm not sure what that says, but there is certainly a small amount of dedication that comes with turning people into squiddy monsters. And maybe, just maybe, I can accept that Sophia Lamb, maybe she made it into round 2. But really what I think happened is that she didn't make it into round 2 at all. What happened was, she got to the end of round 1, made a motion to the ref and said, "Oi, I just got to nick off to the loo for a minute. I'll be back in 5. And while she was in the loo, basically swapped places, sent out some poor old sod who was just desperate for some form of recognition in his life, even if it meant going out there in a dress, putting on a couple of gloves, and saying, "Right, Andrew Ryan, you know what? Don't worry about the fact that I'm sounding a bit butch right now. I'm going to take you on, dude." And Andrew Ryan just came out and basically one punch, that's it. It's all over. That's what happened in this great big intellectual heavyweight battle between objectivism and collectivism. So can we declare that objectivism is good and collectivism is bad? No! We can declare that it's 2016, build me that city now! That's all. Thank you, people. I don't trust you.